right, welcome to the Good Art Friends, where good friends discuss good art. Jonathan, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right. We are marching through time inexorably. College football is starting next weekend. That's unfathomable. Actually, it's starting this weekend. Week 0 is Saturday.
I don't really know. Do you have a favorite season?
For me, working in sports, I always joke that my favorite day is off and my favorite week is bye. So yeah, my favorite season is off.
Has this changed a little bit now that you're no longer in football, which means you get weekends? Because I love fall. Like, I'm ready for fall. I'm done with the heat, especially in North Carolina. Like, I'm done. I want cold weather. I want football. I want, all that.
The issue is that I'm still in sports, and so I'm still like required like 4 Saturdays at least. But then you do get the free ones, and boy, let me tell you, Saturdays in the fall when you wake up and the sun is just right and the weather is just right. I'm drinking an Oktoberfest, like a non-alcoholic Oktoberfest now, and just that feeling. Yeah, when you're going out somewhere and the leaves are just a little bit wet, but the campfire is there, and you're trying to make some s'mores. Yeah, fall rules.
Yeah, it's the best. I'm trying to will it into existence by wearing a cardigan, even though it's high 88 today. I don't know. I'm gonna make it. I feel like this month's topic, Black Prairie, is that a fall album or is it a winter album? It's not a summer album.
It's not a summer album. It's very winter.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. But before that, we have what is our Miyazaki minute. This month is Kiki's Delivery Service. What season is that?
I feel like
The Witch. Yeah, it's spring in tone, but like, are witches by definition fall?
No, I think also you can look at it as spring with Kiki's. It's a coming of age movie. Spring, summer, going into bloom. Yeah.
And actually, before we share our non-spoiler thoughts on that, let's hear my oldest daughter, my 7-year-old, insist on having her thoughts on air. So let's hear that. All right, what do you think of Kiki's Delivery Service?
I think it was fun, and it was a little scary, but I think it's really good for kids.
Okay, what do you like about it?
That girl in the movie that Kiki had her job with was super nice.
Okay. So you recommend it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think.
Which, I agree. You captured it very well. And I think you've said it before. I think you told me, or maybe you tweeted or something. I just want to inhabit this world.
Yeah, I want to live there.
Yeah.
So badly.
Just hang out, baguettes every day, friendly witches that help out, buds that just do some great painting and all those kind of things, And
it's another one of those Miyazaki movies where like the specter of war is there, but it's also like they're very much in peacetime, and it's just like it's the whole Miyazaki high-walled city. Yeah. Like high-walled buildings. There's a big clock tower. There's brick streets. And it's just
so many pastries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all the best parts of the Gaston song and the Belle song where they sing all the mean things about her.
Yes.
But it's all of those.
We were missing a library with one of the ladders, that slides across. That's my life goal right there.
Oh, there was a giant body of water.
Yeah. Some flying machines and stuff. And it was thematically, it was beautiful. Just that I like how it was a story about like the old and the new, and not neglecting and forgetting the old, the traditions, the customs. But it's kind of flipped on its head because that was represented by the kid, the child, which I thought was a neat kind of twist. Yeah. And then just finding your value to your community, the grace and the whimsy, all that. It was, it was a beautiful movie. This is one that I wouldn't say that it's probably not my favorite so far, but I feel like it might be the one that I turn on the most just to inhabit that world.
It's so warm. It's like My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah. Which we have watched, but now, so the question is, what do I watch again? So Eva, she's been kind of in Spirited Away is the only one. She tapped out halfway through because that was a little too dark, which is fair. Is fair. That like that monster just ingesting people was a bit much. So what do you think? Where should we go? Where should we go next?
At least from here, it's going to be difficult because you're going to start getting into like the more art direction movies, and like they'll still be about kids. Like for example, like Howl's Moving Castle, but Howl's gets intense at the end. And then I recently went to go see Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Have you seen Princess Mononoke?
No, I'm intrigued by that. Well, and that's Zelda-esque, right?
Yeah.
And the next Zelda game is coming out the month that this episode will air, presumably. Yeah, do you think there's a chance that Eva will stick around for that? Or she has asked about Howl's, you pick Howl's?
I think she might get through like 70% of Howl's.
Okay, let's do Howl's and then I'll try to do Princess next.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that when you get to like Howl's and Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa, mainly like Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa inhabit the same space. In that, like, they're both action movies.
Yeah.
And, like, Miyazaki is very good at these, like, movies about children finding purpose, right?
Yeah.
But you forget that, like, he's also really good at action movies.
Yeah. And to be honest, this one is a repeat for me. It is the first Miyazaki movie I've seen. And as you took me to it last December-ish, I want to say. Yeah. So for me, I'll be repeating, but working through on the podcast and with Eva. Okay. All right. Segue from Miyazaki to Black Parade. Go.
Yeah. I mean, so the Miyazaki movies are really all about moving forward and what to do from there. And that is all what the Black Parade is about.
You're an 80 grade co-host, Jonathan.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the year 2006. It is October.
Okay.
The week before Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
My Chemical Romance has put out 2 albums before now. And like straight up, I didn't really listen to My Chem.
No, were you aware of them?
Yes.
Okay, but you weren't like kind of locked in yet.
Wasn't really locked into them. I had a lot of friends that were interested in their music and they really enjoyed them. And it's one of those things where like we've had this conversation, and I went back ahead of this episode to listen to their entire discography.
Right, yeah.
And it's one of those things where when they put out their second albums, like you can tell that they were getting ready to put out something really good, but you wouldn't expect it to be as good as the Black Parade was. Their first album was I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. And that was a real introduction to them. And this was like during the time period, I mean, like Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance, this was during the time where they could have a competition about who can write the longer song title. Like for example, one of the singles says, "Honey, this mirror isn't big enough for the two of us." Right? Like that's a song title. Right?
Yeah, that's so here. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So they put that out, and then they bring out 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, which was a smash hit.
Okay.
It's an album that includes Helena.
Okay. Yeah.
So Long and Good Night.
Yeah.
I'm Not Okay, I Promise. That's on there. The Ghost of You is also on there. And this was like, wow, this is a great album. Can't wait to figure out what they're going to do next. And then here's the thing. They put out The Black Parade in 2006 and then didn't put out another album for 4 years. Bullets was 2002. Sweet Revenge was 2004. Black Parade was 2006. 2 years. Yeah. And then it was almost like they were done. And honestly, the Black Parade was so popular, but they toured on that for so long. And it got to a point where they were tired of it. And they were just like, we don't want to do this forever. And like they had this huge concert in Mexico City. If I remember right, it was on Dia de los Muertos.
Cool.
and it was The Black Parade is Dead, and that was that was their final concert performing as The Black Parade, because that was what they fully inhabited.
Yeah,
when they did that, and they put out one more album in 2010, and that's it.
Yeah, which is wild. Yeah, I'm trying. So I didn't like emo. What's the right genre? What are we talking about?
Yeah,
like Bright. How would you commit? Bright Eyes was as far into that kind of, which I don't know. Like, how would you compare My Chemical Romance to Bright Eyes? I was all in on Bright Eyes, but I never really listened to My Chemical Romance.
I haven't really listened to a lot of Bright Eyes.
Okay,
to be honest with you. I know they're really in their own space. I mean, this was a time where it was a lot of like really high driving guitars.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember Taking Back Sunday, right? In that kind of same vein. I'm like, I know there's going to be somebody out there who's going to be really mad at me for comparing My Chem to Taking Back Sunday, but like it's that same like sonic quality where it's like this really intense sound.
Yeah, like a lot of like the power chords, the quick like eighth notes or something like that. Okay. All right. So yeah, like I said, other than really the main song, I don't know if I know anything from it. Anything else that so listeners at this point, we'll pause in a couple minutes, then we'll come back after we've both kind of dove deep into it.
English is difficult.
It is. It's really weird language. So yeah, if you're like Jonathan and you're all in, I think you'll enjoy it. If you're like me and you're not as familiar, hopefully you get something out of this too. Anything else that we should keep in mind?
I'm going to straight up tell you, like, there is a good chance I might end up crying when we get
crying on air. That's going to be a first, man. That's monumental. I like it. Yeah.
Just because of like, when I think about this album, like, so it came out in 2006, which was, I was in my junior year. Yeah, I was in my junior year of high school. And I really didn't latch on to this album until I was in like my junior year of college.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I listened to it a ton. I listened to it a lot when I was up late writing papers and all of that. That's when I really dug into this album. And I don't know, there's a lot in this album emotionally for me. Like specifically, there's one song here that I'm really looking forward to talking to you about. But what's also just really cool about this album is that it is a rock opera. This album
thematically, lyrically as well. Like there's a narrative throughout. Okay.
Yes. So you have heard "Welcome to the Black." Tell me about this song from your point of view.
Oh, I don't remember enough to like kind of. I just melodically, I kind of remember the beats of it, but I couldn't tell you much about that.
That opening G from the piano had people in a headlock.
Oh, yeah.
It would just happen and everybody would just turn and look.
Yeah. And the crescendos. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm excited. So we're going to listen to it, then come back to hear Jonathan cry on air. Yeah. And we'll talk about like the first 5 minutes of Up in a future episode. So I'll return the favor.
Yeah.
So we go. Okay.
With your permission, when we leave here, I would like to play for you the first 2 tracks so that you can hear it. And I want to see your reaction when it happens.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. And then I'll go home. I'll listen to the rest and we'll come back and record the rest. Okay. All right, we're back.
Yeah. Beautiful interstitial, by the way.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Putting the piano to use.
Yeah, it is so hard not to get any amount of emotional every time I listen to the title track, Welcome to the Black Parade, and really just the album in general.
Just the first note, the G.
Yeah, like I said in the intro, like that note just has an entire generation of people in a head.
Yes.
Like it just happens and everybody just turns and waits.
Yeah. And that song, like it is a microcosm for the whole album, both in terms of like the story.
Yeah.
In a way that I feel like a lot of rock operas don't quite accomplish. Like a lot of rock operas, about half the songs are on point, and then they're like, oh, we'll just throw these in. But this one, it just really works beginning and end. It's all kind of encapsulated in that.
Yeah.
And also just lyrically and melodically, all that. The song is perfect on Perfect Album.
Yes. Yeah. When we finished up the first half, I had you listen to the first 2 tracks at my house. What was your impression of the end leading into the flat line of the start of Dead?
It's so the first time, like when I listened just at your house, I was purely just registering in it for like kind of isolated songs, and they're just kick-ass songs.
Yes.
But then the more I kind of dove into this and did my like, autistic deep dive, the more I love them. One, just I guess for one thing, and there's a good video I'll drop in the show notes that talked about like the influences of this and how they're playing off of other rock operas like The Wall and Bowie's Ziggy Stardust.
Yes.
And there's just little things like with the end where it has the same kind of G major and I think it's E minor and a strumming pattern that really evokes that 5 years from David Bowie and playing that. And then especially just the story, like narratively, one, it's just cool that a narrative starts with the end.
Yes.
But that is kind of it. Like it's the end and he thinks it's the end and he's just nihilistic and prepared for, I shouldn't say prepared for death. He's just resigned to it,
Yeah.
And it starts at the end and then it kind of works its way with the famous last words almost kind of to the beginning.
Yes.
And just either embracing life or death, but either way from a perspective of kind of choice and ownership and agency that you don't have at the end, which is actually the beginning,
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah, I loved them as isolated songs, but then I loved them all the more once I dug deep into what the album was doing.
Yes, the juxtaposition between when I grew up, I want to be nothing at all to I'm not afraid to keep on living.
Yeah, and that's, if we can then jump to the famous last words, I thought was beautiful. And then I love the last chorus as the album wraps up, other than the strange secret track,
Yes.
But then the refrain in the background, or dead. And you don't necessarily know if he's like, oh, he fought through, or if he did die, but either way, he's okay with it in a way that he wasn't when the story started.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to famous last words really when we get there, but like that is one of my all-time favorite album closers. Like of all of the albums that I love, like I've told you, That's What Counts by We Are Scientists from Breakdance Mastery is also really up there. But famous last words is like probably number 1 on album closers for me. Duckworth from Damn by Kendrick Lamar also really high.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, it holds a lot of water to me. This album holds a lot for me personally, but we'll move through it. So the album has the way that it goes in album order. There's another video online from a guy named Wendigoon who talks about the album, and he has his own theory of the album being not in chronological order as it's printed.
Interesting.
And introducing the thought of the different characters of the album. So I had my own interpretation of the album as you listen to it. It's really him going through the process of grieving his life and dying. And I always, when I first really listened to it, interpreted it to this guy's dead, but he's now like in the afterlife, not afraid to pursue and go forward.
Interesting. Also, this way station, and that's when he's seeing that like happy memory or the depressing memory of like the parade and stuff like that. Interesting.
Yes. But with this other theory, and it also helped me to flesh out some more theories of my own for this album. It introduces the thought of there are 2 main characters of the album. Of course, there's the patient. Yeah. And then there's also the parader, which is the guy who is shepherding the patient onward. And he had the theory of there's a delineation between which 2 songs belong to which. If it starts with like an acoustic start, it's the patient.
Cool.
Rock start, it's the parader. So you get, for example, House of Wolves. Or The Sharpest Lives. And it's really like his introduction. Like, if I crash on your couch, can I sleep in my clothes? I'm the one that you need. I'm the one that you loathe, right? Like, I'm here for you. And the way that he also described it is that when he put it in chronological order, he said that teenagers was a description of the patient's life, like really a kind of like antisocial kind of guy, not really great.
Right.
But now he's facing an undeserved early end.
Mm-hmm.
But the parader is like, yeah, I don't care. You sucked. Here you go. Here's your prize.
Yeah, and it does have that nihilistic. So that's interesting. I didn't think of it as a second character, but then that one is the kind of what the Wormwood-esque kind of tempter, and none of this matters. Just give in to the nihilism. Mm-hmm. Everyone goes to hell, so why even bother?
Right.
Trying to, speak up for, the broken, the beaten, the damned, all that.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And for me, so again, like I don't fully prescribe to his theory because I have my own, but like it helped me to form some more of my own. Because as it goes forward, you get to sleep, which is later on, which him after being beaten down by everything that he's been told by the readers, through it all, why would you cry for me? Because I don't feel bad about it.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, fine, I'm done. But they also get in sleep in that track. The parader has softened his heart and is trying to encourage him, because I don't know if you listened, especially even in the first track, in the end and in sleep, there is another voice in the track that's yelling in the background. And in sleep you hear this other voice yelling to wake up.
Interesting. Would that be the same voice in Famous Last Words then, in theory, that is saying or dead or dead?
Well, really it's the I know that I can't make you stay, but where's your heart?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think of that second perspective. I like that.
Yeah.
So what's your theory then?
My theory is like, in that way, it's really just like, yeah, he's like fighting his way through in the parader, who you actually get introduced to from him. And I can also agree with this. Mama is his song. That's his introduction.
Oh, that makes sense then, because there was something that's like, wait, when was he at war? Is the war metaphorical? Okay, so that's why his background, because that was something that I got stuck on with war, is that like this seems like a different kind of thing than what the patient is going through. Now, it could be metaphorical, life is war, going through cancer is war, those kind of things.
And then My Chemical Romance, very much anti-war in general.
Yeah.
So like I just figured in that way, which also, like, side note, Mama does contain like one of my more funny, dark humor way turns through there in the second verse, when he's talking about how like you could have raised a baby girl, I could have been a better son. And then follow that with, if we can cotter the infection, we can amputate it once.
And also there's one guest vocalist in the entire album, and it's Liza Minnelli on War. I love it. That's wonderful. It's perfect.
But as it goes on, and then like it flows into my personal favorite track. But before I get there, I want to hand this floor back over to you, and I want to hear from you on your journey through listening to this album.
Yeah, so it's certain. There are certain waves. Like, I'm trying to think how many times I must listen. So the first wave, what struck me was just the Black Parade. Beautiful song. That's the one that I recognize, all that. And then I went to the two ends, with starting with the end and then ending with Famous Last Words. As just beautifully, once I got a sense of what the narrative kind of was, I think they opened and closed to the story so wonderfully, and just musically they're kick-ass anthems, and then as I start listening more, I'm getting more into some of just the weirder ones. So I really like Mama, with that like cabaret kind of feel to it. And then I loved the let's see, one second, House of Wolves. Just that seedy jazz club feel, and narratively that seems to fit. It made me think of that scene from, have you seen The Corpse Bride?
No.
Oh, it's wonderful. There's a scene where they end up in hell, and there is a similar seedy kind of hell-based jazz club, and it has a similar feel. So that's where I'm kind of at now. But But yeah, I mean, each song is wonderful. I Don't Love You and This Is How I Disappear just on their own are just like wonderful isolated songs.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just going through and listing every song. But I suppose that's because, kind of going back to, I feel like this is the most complete rock opera.
Yeah.
Like the Decemberists have done a few. There's that one with the rake song. They've kind of experimented a little with like the Crane Wife, but from beginning to end in terms of like a full narrative, I feel like this is my favorite.
Yeah, all killer, no filler.
Yes.
Yeah, literally no skips. Like even Cancer, which is a slower song, like is a no skip.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Listening to that song. But I Don't Love You is such a standout song on this album that I think really gets overlooked. And I think I talked about this briefly when we did Javelin. But it's such an honest question. When you go, will you even turn to say, I don't love you like I did yesterday?
Yeah. I do recall, and that is interesting with Javelin, thinking about a similar, not quite a rock opera, but thematically about death and all those things, just in a different way. Yeah, but that does hit harder now. Yeah, knowing the story.
And I also I really love the fact that the melody is carried by the lead guitar at like a tenor register rather than like at a soprano level. Yeah. And it's very solemn. I love a ballad. I really do love a rock ballad. It has to be said. Heart, I love you. You deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But yeah, and it holds so much water, that song. And especially like I love the end of it when you get what you have the guts to say, and how it just it tails out and you just have the bass in the organ and the lead guitar comes in just for a little bit before that huge hit at the end.
They layer the instrumentation just so beautifully, like a song like Mama that just starts out with that staccato guitar, and then the drums and bass, and I think it's a xylophone kicks in, and then you have the backing vocals and making it that rock, kind of the electric guitar for the chorus.
Yeah, and one thing I never noticed until it was brought up to me in the video, there's an air raid siren when it gets to that mid-screaming chorus.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, and there's just some like great guitar solos throughout too, you know? It's musically it's a wonderful album.
Yeah. So personally, song on there that always gets me is Disenchanted.
Why? Is it good?
It is relatable, honestly. And it's so sad, really, and it really does feel like, with it being placed at the end of the album, Wendigoon moves it to a different act. He broke it into 3 acts. I think this song really does belong at the end of the album, because it really does feel like an end of life reflection. Because it starts with, I was there on the day they sold the cars for the Queen. When the lights all went out, we watched our lives on the screen. I hate the ending myself, but it started with an all right scene.
Yeah, I like that. Start with an all right scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the whole core, and I could go through like, it was the roar of the crowd that gave me heartache to see. It was a lie when they smiled and said you won't feel a thing. And as we ran from the cops, we laughed so hard it would sting.
Yeah. And I love that one, the at all.
Yes.
As it starts to wind down. That would, I can see how that would fit well towards the end.
And the second verse also, I spent my high school career being spat on and shoved to a grease so I could watch all my idols sell a car on TV. And it's like, like as a kid that was bullied in middle school and high school, I'm like, that's kind of what it was like. You're just kind of making it through, and then it, like you said, and then just the nihilistic look at it, and him just like letting go and being ready, like you're just a lifelong wait for a hospital stay. A lifelong wait with nothing to say about a lifelong wait for a hospital stay. And if you think that I'm wrong, this never meant anything to you.
And as you said, I think this album, there are albums that I love that do the life is shit and meaningless. I mean, I love Elliott Smith.
Yes.
There are albums that do that. There are albums that are just pure wonderfully uplifting, but I can't think of too many other albums that jump between the two like this one does. And I mean, that's what, like, life is relative. The highs only feel like highs because of the lows. So I think it hits harder as a result.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so like Disenchanted, and then also to do a little tinfoil theory, right? With the way that the guitar goes on that octave at the end, kind of, you could think it could be like a heart rate monitor.
Oh, interesting. And I mean, it starts with that. So yeah, that would be, yeah, but in a way that is more meaningful and personal and tied to the art.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
And then, of course, we get to famous last words. And while I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking about why does this album resonate so much for me? I mean, there's the whole thing about why I enjoy punk and emo. And before I dive into this, I also want to take a moment to talk about Disenchanted. I feel like MCR made an analog to this on Danger Days, their final album, their next album after this, with the kids from yesterday on there. As the chorus is, you only live forever in the lives you make. When we were young, we used to say that you only hear the music when your heart begins to break. We are the kids from yesterday. And it's really more of like, it's not as darkened down. It really feels like, to me, it's a song that feels like the end of summer, right? You're rolling into fall and it feels like you're just rolling down the road towards the sunset and like the end of a movie, right?
Yeah.
That kind of feel.
And in both those, it's interesting just where does art come from? And it comes from some of that heartbreak and pain. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that this band kind of formed in the wake of 9/11.
Yes.
Just like, there's a Leonard Cohen quote, I won't get it quite right, but just all the pain and heartache that you can't process, you put into art, you know? And I think there's something really poignant about that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was thinking about why does this album really resonate with me so much? This came out, 2006. I was a junior in high school because it was fall 2006, October. I didn't really connect with this album until I was a junior in college, 7 years later. And it was the time of my life where I was really starting to come out as a gay adult man, and being able to latch on to something here, especially in famous last words. I am not afraid to keep on living. I am not afraid to walk this world alone. It's one of those things. It's like, yeah, like I can do this. I will do this, and I can make it forward. And I think it's like that entire walking the hell landscape that this album really does. I think that's part of what really resonated with me and probably with a lot of other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And there's something I like about that. And I'm probably just, it's not the saccharine, like everything's going to be fine. Like it's acknowledging like, yeah, life still is kind of shit sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, and even you processing, not that like, oh, everything's going to be perfect. Some people are still going to be dicks and there's going to be difficulties. Yeah. But still that existential choice to move on.
Yeah.
Go.
And not to, again, bring in other bands, again, Spanish love songs. They put out an album right at the start of the pandemic, before it started, really, in 2020, Brave Faces Everyone.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
Yeah, and the final track is, Brave Faces Everyone. And the final line of the song is, "We were never broken. Life's just very long. Brave faces, everyone."
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's something I thought about with just like processing kind of autism, all that. There's all this pressure, but like, I am broken. I need to change myself to fit the surroundings, and then flipping and then thinking about like, no, the surroundings need to change to fit the people that have been deceived into thinking they're broken.
Yeah. I promise I would be like completely normal about this album, but
no, you said you would tear up on air.
And that's a milestone. It is happening. It is happening.
That's in itself is art. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just, the album, it means a lot for a lot of people, and a lot of people have different reasonings for why that is. And it is, the album really is just a reminder, a microcosm of really just like life. Like you have options as you walk through it. It sucks, but you have options on how to fight it.
Yeah. Now with this being such a incredible piece of art and something that is so cohesive and coherent as a singular entity, do you want My Chemical Romance to like put more music out there, or is there something about like they made this?
Well, Gerard Way, as I saw a clip about this, I don't know how long ago it was. It was probably like during the tour of the Black Parade. He said that when they were making this and when he was writing it, that like it felt like it was their last album, and that like that was pretty much like it for them, which makes sense. That they put out one more album, which was a similar, more like pop forward rock opera.
So the next one is like
Danger Days is another.
That's cool.
Rock opera. Which the fabulous lives of the Killjoys, I think, is parentheses of it. Which, by the way, also the title track. Well, not the title track. The first track after the little vocal open is na 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 parentheses na 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 na.
It's a good title. That's straight to the point.
Yes. But yeah, like I think they're done. I know that everybody wants them to come back, but it's like they have put together like a great career. It's one of those where it's like a baseball pitcher comes in and throws 9 seasons, wins 7 Cy Youngs, and then retires. It's like, yeah, you did your job. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what they've been doing in the decade or so since they've?
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I never really looked into. But I do want to take a moment to talk about, to bring a little levity to this, that I don't know if you did any research about the entire cursed recording process.
No, go on.
So they recorded this at the Paramore, which already off to a great start. And I'm reading this from Alternative Press. Quote, a cinematically perfect origin for a cursed album in a notoriously haunted mansion. While confined within its walls where doors slammed and opened seemingly of their own volition and the atmosphere hung ominously overhead, the darkest moments of the album began to manifest. Sleep, for instance, was the result of night terrors vocalist Gerard Way experienced while staying at the house. Bassist Mikey Way, who was already battling serious mental health concerns at the time, stayed in the estate's most haunted room, the atmosphere of which only exacerbated his inner turmoil, which led to him first sleeping on the floor of Gerard's room, then to his leaving the mansion entirely to seek help. The band ended up leaving the eerie place before their scheduled time.
Woo!
Right. So there's that. And then I also I think I read that they would also record close to midnight and late in the night.
Just to really lean into the skid.
Yeah.
Nice.
Have you watched any of the music videos from this album?
No, I did track down the Mexico City performance though, and that was wonderful. And there was some theatrical elements comes out on the gurney, but no, I haven't seen the music videos.
Yes. So you should watch in order the Welcome to the Black Parade, because it's great. It shows the patient in the hospital room holding on for dear life, and then all of the curtains drop out of the room, and he is standing in this war-torn landscape, and here comes the Black Parade, and they're on this massive float, and if you haven't seen anything about the Black Parade, they're literally in black marching band outfits a la Sergeant Pepper, but they're solely black and white. Gerard Way cut and dyed his hair white,
yes,
for it. And so they did that, and then they recorded Famous Last Words after that. And the float that they're on in the Black Parade is seen crashed and burning in the background of Famous Last Words. So here we go. Again from Alternative Press. On August 4th, 2006, during the filming of Famous Last Words, 2 members were seriously injured. Having spent the entirety of the previous day filming the video Welcome to the Black Parade, the band found themselves in a state of tired near delirium that mixed dangerously with adrenaline, making them wild and unconcerned about bodily harm.
Yeah.
First guitarist Frankie Arrow decided to jump on Gerard, knocking him over at a bizarre angle that ultimately tore the ligaments in his ankle.
Ooh.
After having had a medic inspect the injury on set, it was decided that Gerard should put his boot back on before his ankle swelled too much to fit back into it and continue performing. So when you see Gerard wobbling about in that video or screaming on the ground, you're seeing real pain. During the final shot, with the float burning to its final crisp, flames started to reach drummer Bob Breyer's leg. Knowing it was the last take and that they needed to finish it, Breyer remained behind his kit. Letting his leg burn to the end of the song, he then ran away. His perseverance through the pain led to second and third degree burns that eventually became infected, resulting in gangrene.
Gangrene.
Totally normal recording process.
I will say all this has made me kind of, this is the old man yells at clouds kind of portion, but just kind of miss a bygone era of music.
Yeah.
In terms of one, just in the era of streaming, I think it's wonderful in some ways. Compensation gets complicated and stuff like that, but I think there's cool that like people can release music and share it with the masses easier. But there's something about the unified album that I think means more when it's a physical object that you hold on to and it doesn't all just kind of like blur into each other.
Mm-hmm.
To music videos, because it's not really a thing anymore, but then also like hidden tracks, you know, like Blood. And I was reading that there was like a weird thing that you'd have to like tinker with the DVD RW drive in order to get it to like go into Explorer to get Blood to pop up. And even just that, like, you know, you're waiting of 2 minutes of silence and you know something else is on there, but it didn't say that there were any songs.
Yes.
Like that stuff doesn't exist anymore. That
not really.
Makes me a little sad.
Yeah, you know what the entire album is, and you're just gonna see it.
Yeah.
I want to circle back. Did you share what was your favorite track from the album?
I mean, so,
or if not favorite track, favorite moment.
Yeah. So the Black Parade. Like we talked about, you know, favorite music moment and lyric, and the easy answer is the Black Parade. Yeah, and like the opening, that G note, and then how it kind of kicks in and all that kind of stuff. Same, likewise, those are some of my favorite lyrics. But that aside, probably my second would be the beginning, that hospital beep at the end, then the strumming, the G major, E minor, that Bowie reference kind of thing, and then kicking in, and how that goes right seamlessly with the flat line to the next track. That's that probably will become my favorite the more I listen to it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, it's still Disenchanted.
Yeah.
It holds so much weight for me.
Yeah.
But also with Dead, which by the way, as we keep saying, it's Dead with an exclamation point.
Yes. Gotta rise up. Dead.
Yes. But of course, I think what became every emo kid's favorite pull from there, if life ain't just a joke, then why aren't we laughing?
Yes, that is a great line. I also liked in Teenagers, there's a lot of great lines in there. Another cog in the murder machine is a great line that they're going to clean up your looks with all the lies in the books to make a citizen out of you.
Yes.
It's some beautiful cynicism there.
Yes.
Which then just makes the heartfelt, earnest ones just all the more earned. You know, when it is like, screw it, I'm going to fight, or screw it, I'm going to look out for those that have been hurt. You know, it means so much. Yeah.
The ascension of famous last words at the end. Again, it's like, it was one of those things. Again, I talk about album closers. I love them so much, especially like they're really good. But it's like one of those things where like I don't just jump and listen to the album closer because it doesn't feel the same if it doesn't feel quote unquote earned.
Yeah.
Right. You listen to the whole album and you fight your way through, and then finally, oh man, I got to dive and talk about famous last words. So you get those first few choruses, which are, you know, hanging in the balance. It really feels like it's like a purgatory. You don't know which way the song is going to go. And then you lift up into the chorus and it drops back down and you're like, okay, where are we going? It lifts back to the chorus. And then you get the massive guitar solo that leads into the second, the outro. And that lift there, because again it drops back down to where it is in the verse, and then finally it shreds through and it ends on this major just double hit, and it spikes my heart rate every single time it gets there, because you're just driving through and finally it's like you're going through a storm. Like the storm comes through and then all of a sudden it's over and there's blue skies there.
Well put.
And that's like what it feels like every time. And then finally I see you lying next to me. Yeah.
And it's so satisfying. And then 2 minutes later, you got that weird blood song.
Yes.
It's just like, I don't know how to process this for the narrative, but it's lovely.
Yeah. But just the way that the album comes to an end, you can talk about just the way it's layered. You have, Gerard shouting, asleep or dead.
Yes, or dead, I love.
And you have the guitars playing, the drum is going, and all of the band slowly fades out, and it just brings in that organ for the final part of it. I am not afraid to keep on living. I'm not afraid to walk this world alone. Honey, if you stay, you'll be forgiven. And then it collapses into one voice to I am not afraid what's that? If you say forgiven, nothing you could say could stop me going home. And it closes in on that note, similar to the same moment from Hamilton at the end, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, because it's in harmony and it collapses into one note.
Yeah.
And it really really brings it all together. And the organ finishing on the major keys. You start, you start in hell. Like the whole album, you start in hell, and then finally you get a moment of reprieve. Yeah,
there's that Dante element of like pulling out from those layers. Yeah.
And it leaves you in a moment of hope.
Yeah, but not a naive one. It reminds me a little, go back to the pretentious novel corner of like Camus The Plague.
Yeah.
And that like we're all dying. Like the idea that there was death and it's inevitable and it's right here in these walls, as it was like a bubonic plague or some version of it, like in the town, like we could all die at any moment regardless. So it's just about, once you see that, it freaks you out, but then to fight through and still live and find some kind of existential ways to live despite that knowledge. Yeah. But yeah, great album.
I'm so happy that we got to do this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for introducing it. Like I said, I had only heard the one song. I had never really listened. Now I want to listen more. My Chemical Romance. Which album should I just go back to their first one, the one with Helena? I don't know how to say, or should I do the Danger Days with?
So, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge is really like was their critically acclaimed album before the Black Parade, and everybody. Like the order is really Black Parade and then Sweet Revenge. People did not like Danger Days, and it took me a while for me to really understand why they disliked it so much. And it's one of those things where it's like you expect something from a band and then they do a different sound.
Yeah.
And like, it's good. It's really great on merit. But if you don't want that sound as a fan, you will turn and reject it.
Gotcha. Like, I don't know, Kid A from Radiohead or something like that. Like,
one of those things.
Okay.
But I personally enjoy Danger Days, but I finally did understand why people didn't really like it as much. Danger Days is fun. You get Nana, which has a Batman Nana in it also, which is great. Like Danger Days is really just like a straightforward pop album.
Okay.
But then you'll get Sweet Revenge, I think, is probably the most accessible of their more emo forward albums. It also includes I'm Not Okay, I Promise.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that. That's another great title. Yeah.
And I'm Not Okay is really fun. It's probably another song that like really big MCR fans will be like, yeah, I love this song.
Okay. All right. I'll keep diving deeper. Well, thank you for this.
Yes.
That's great. Let's see. So next month, we're doing comics.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Ultimate Spider-Man 1 through 6. That's the 2024 Jonathan Hickman run, which by the time this is releasing, that will be out on, I think, September 16th. So probably within a few days, that comes out in trade paperback, or if you have Marvel Unlimited, the first 6 issues should be out.
Okay.
So start reading that, and we'll talk about that next month. So yeah, Jonathan, thank you for talking about good art with me.
Yes.
Yep.
Not afraid to keep on living.
Oh, well put.